They were not in a pulpit. There was no incense, no singing, only voices, heat, and a kind of accusation that wounds more than stone. Venice was crowded, and in that hall someone said with a tone of certainty, "There are only 3 languages worthy of praising God: Hebrew, Greek, and Latin." 3, as if heaven had a narrow gate, and at the entrance, a guard holding a list of languages. 2 men, covered in road dust, remained standing. One was older, with the shoulders of someone who had learned to obey and to lead without display. The other seemed to carry the restlessness of someone who thinks inwardly even when silent, and a fragility that did not match the courage of the moment. In the younger man's hand, a roll of parchment. It was not Latin, it was not Greek. And yet, it seemed to be praying. The letters were strange, rounded and sharp like little flames. An entire alphabet, as if someone had gathered the sounds of the wind and trapped them in writing. A smile of contempt cut across the room. "You intend to teach the people to pray in that invention?" The older man took a deep breath. The younger one raised his eyes slowly, not like someone challenging out of pride, but like someone refusing to betray a calling, because their story did not begin in Venice. It began long before, where the Christian world seemed stretched between 2 lungs, east and west. There was a frontier that was not only geographical, it was cultural, political, spiritual. North of Thessalonica, Slavic peoples lived hungry for meaning. They had heard something of Christ, yes, but like a distant echo, in imported words that were hard to chew. And a prince of Moravia, tired of depending on teachers who spoke without touching the people's heart, asked for something audacious. "Send us someone who can speak to us, someone who can teach us the faith in our language." In Constantinople, they chose 2 brothers. The older was named Michael, later known as Methodius. He had passed through public life, knew the weight of decisions and the harshness of disputes. Then he left everything for monastic life: silence, discipline, prayer. The younger was named Constantine, a philosopher, a scholar, a man of books and questions. He was the kind of mind that will not settle for easy answers. Later, he would take a new name, CYRIL. They had grown up in a place where the ear was already used to the Slavic sound in the streets. And now they were being sent to a people who needed not only missionaries, but translators of the gospel for the soul. When they arrived, they realized the obvious thing that changes the world. You may carry the whole truth, but if it arrives wrapped in a language the heart does not understand, it knocks at the door and turns back. That was when Constantine made the most dangerous gesture for anyone who wants to control. He gave the people tools, not a weapon, a script. Night after night, by candlelight, he drew letters as if planting seeds. It was not an academic whim, it was concrete charity, giving shape to the sound of the people's mouth, an alphabet able to bear the word without breaking it. And when the gospel began to be read in the Slavic tongue, something happened that no decree can prevent. The people's eyes shone, not because they were modern, but because they were at last understood. Faith was no longer an echo of foreigners. It was bred. But where light is born, shadow is born as well. There were clergy already present in the region, men of real zeal, yes, but also of rigid convictions and jurisdiction. They feared disorder. They feared that what was new would become division. And there was politics. Whoever evangelizes also influences. So the accusations began to grow like ice inside. You invented letters. You break tradition. You despise Latin. And the worst of all, you will separate the people from the unity of the church. In truth, the risk was real. Not because the people's language was sin, but because any novelty becomes a pretext for war. Cyril and Methodius did not want to rupture. They were not rebels looking for a stage. They were servants trying to keep the gospel from being locked inside a linguistic vault. The tension reached Venice the way a storm arrives. First a wind, then a heavy sky. There they were now facing the idea they called the three sacred languages, a kind of religion that confuses universality with uniformity. And the question hung like a blade: if God is Lord of all, why would he understand only three languages? Cyril spoke, not with sarcasm, but with firmness. He did not need to invent poetry. He only had to remember that Scripture itself sings of a God praised by all nations, a Christ who commands the gospel to be announced to all, a Pentecost in which languages multiply, not narrow. Methodius, at his side, supported with his body what Cyril supported with his mind. The mission was not intellectual vanity. It was pastoral care. But debate decides nothing by itself. They needed Rome. They needed to place that question in the visible heart of Catholic unity. And so they began a journey that was not merely travel. It was a trial. They did not go to Rome empty-handed. They carried with them a precious relic, that of St. Clement, an ancient bishop of Rome. It was not only a treasure, it was a sign, a silent way of saying, we did not come against Rome, we came with Rome. When they arrived, they did not find coldness. They found a procession. Pope Adrian II came out to meet them as one who recognizes that what is at stake is not a room debate, but the future of entire peoples. And then the gesture happened that changes history. The books in the Slavic language, written with those new letters, were received. The liturgy in the people's language was celebrated in Rome's basilicas. That alphabet, accused as a threat, was treated as a legitimate instrument. The unity of the church was not defended by crushing a people's tongue. It was defended by embracing the people, and in that moment, the great turning point was revealed. A Catholic is not one who speaks the same. A Catholic is one who believes the same faith. In every language charity can reach. But every victory here has a cost. Rome was not only confirmation, it was farewell. Cyril fell ill. His body, already seeming delicate, could not bear the weight of so much road and so much tension. He asked for something simple and immense, to withdraw as a monk, to give himself wholly to God before the end arrived. He took the name Cyril, and in the silent night of his weakness, he urged his brother, do not abandon the mission. Methodius heard it as one receives an inheritance shaped like a cross, because a mission is not only a project. A mission is a people waiting, and a brother who will not return. Cyril died in Rome, and now the question was different. Without him, will the work survive? Methodius returned, and he returned alone. The return was not triumph with applause. It was a slow war. Methodius was made a bishop, received a mission, received authority. But he also received opposition. And at some point, the dispute grew so harsh that he was imprisoned, as if the church needed to be saved from the missionary himself. And here is one of the most human pains in the history of the saints. Sometimes the faithful suffer not only from the world, but from misunderstandings within the household. Methodius did not strike back with cynicism. He did not turn the cross into spectacle. He endured. He defended his orthodoxy. He waited. He prayed. And when it seemed silence would win, Rome spoke again. The Pope intervened on his behalf. And the work in the Slavic language, far from being crushed, continued to find space, with prudence, but with legitimacy. Methodius kept translating, forming disciples, planting a church rooted in the people's tongue and anchored in the faith of all time. And when he died, the seed was already in the ground. It was no longer the mission of two brothers. It was a Christian culture being born. Today, when you look at the languages of the world, it is easy to forget that one day someone tried to reduce God to 3 official sounds. And yet, God chose 2 brothers to prove the opposite. They were not saints because they invented letters. They were saints because they understood that charity can be written too. Because bringing the gospel is not colonizing another soul. It is serving the other with the whole truth, according to the measure they can receive. Cyril and Methodius are remembered as apostles of the Slavs and as bridges in times of tension between East and West. And perhaps that is why their story remains so timely without needing to be contemporary. Whenever someone tries to say God only fits in one mold, they return with a parchment in hand and ask in silence, "And how will the people's heart pray?" If you had been in that hall in Venice hearing only 3 languages, what would you have felt? And more importantly, what language does God need to use to reach you, the one you truly understand? If this story touched you, write in the comments, what word of the gospel would you want to hear as if for the first time in your own inner language? And ask the intercession of Saint Cyril and Methodius that they teach us to unite truth and mercy, tradition and mission, one faith and many voices.